noticed how pilot episodes of TV shows always have more gratuitous sex and nudity than the rest of the series?
Ugh, at least it's just in the pilot episodes, so we don't have to deal with this for the rest of the series. Oh, come on. Thanks for lying to me. So the next 2 episodes of Velma were released, and honestly, most of it is relationship drama. The plot itself feels like it's being dragged out. Like in the trailers, they allude to a supernatural element, but that still hasn't come up yet despite the fact that we're officially halfway through the season. Even if it does turn out to be just some guy in a mask, you'd think we would get something by now. Instead, the most we get with the major plot is that another girl was found dead, and that's about it. Really dragging their feet with this. But why focus on a mystery in a Scooby-Doo spin-off when you can have petty teenage romance drama? Yeah, that's way better. But after the 3rd victim is discovered, they let Fred out of jail, since there's no way he could have committed the murder while he was locked up. But more importantly, Fred, Daphne, and Norville are all confirmed to be into Velma. And that's more important than a serial killer being on the loose. Norville's been sipping for her from the beginning, then they randomly throw in shipping with her and Daphne, which Norville is forced to witness like the simp he is. And then Velma basically tricks Fred into reading a book about feminism, so now he sees her for her inner beauty, which is completely non-existent. I'm sorry, but it's true. She has little to no redeeming qualities, and all this comes out of nowhere. We were never given any insight to what Norville actually likes about her, and Daphne and Velma have only been hostile to each other every time we've seen them on screen, including Velma being physically violent and threatening to kill her.
You almost killed me! Guess I didn't try hard enough.
Then Daphne held the file for Velma's mother's missing persons case over her head for $500, and when she couldn't get the money, she forced her to sell drugs. But it seems like this is the ship that they're pushing the most, despite the fact that they don't have any chemistry and don't seem to have a reason to like each other at all, whether it's romantically or platonically, and that basically goes for all 4 of the characters. I could understand if Velma had a character arc where she became a better person, and then they all start to be friends with her and maybe explore other feelings, but not now while she's still an abrasive jerk, not to mention violent. Meanwhile, stuff that has the potential to be intriguing gets overlooked. Like episode 3 ends with Norville discovering that his mother has some kind of ties to an insane asylum.
Crystal Cove Insane Asylum?
Son, there's something I need to tell you about your mother.
And then this isn't brought up again in episode 4. They introduce this new and intriguing plot point only to ignore it for more simping. Instead, he tries to get Velma to admit what she likes about Daphne so he can try to emulate it, so she'll like him, which she gives a non-answer to. So he decides to follow Daphne around to try to figure it out for himself, because him being with Velma is more important than whatever's going on with his mom. Why'd they bother making a mystery show if they don't care about the mystery? They should have just done a teen drama. That's more or less what the show boils down to anyway. It's all about Velma and her weird and non-compelling love life. She even has a hallucination where she's being assaulted by the other 3 members of the gang.
Hi. Kissing me would confuse you? Wait, what?
I hate this show. So another girl ends up dead the same way as the previous 2, but we're only told about it. We don't get to find out what happened or where. Like how the first body was discovered in Velma's locker, and the second was discovered on her property, which likely means there's some connection to Velma. The leading theory right now is that the murderer is her mother, and this whole thing is a mystery for her to solve. But because of all these murders, the town is taking precautions by having all the high school girls take a self-defense course, and also giving the 5 hottest girls in school a police escort, because that's all they can afford from the budget. This all leads to some really creepy stuff. Velma says it's weird for middle-aged white guys to rank high school girls, although I'd argue that's weird regardless of race, so they tell her to make the list, which leads to a montage of 15-year-old girls basically trying to seduce Velma, as they try to prove that they're the hottest and deserve to be on that list. You know, the one that can protect them from possibly dying. Except they could probably try to put effort into actually locating the murderer, you know, doing detective work, considering the fact that there are a bunch of clues that they're just ignoring. Instead, we're wasting time with this. Basically, this whole episode, they're trying to make statements about the patriarchy and male gaze and societal beauty standards and so on and so forth. But then they turn around and sexualize a bunch of underage girls. Yeah, great social commentary, guys. I don't even think this list would be effective anyway. The murderer would just target the girls who don't have a police escort. It definitely just feels like an excuse to sexualize these minors. This show is honestly really sexist to both men and women. They constantly refer to women as bitches and sluts, and these women happen to be minors, and take every opportunity they can to objectify them.
Ooh, they are so hot, daddy likey.
FBI, open up!
Meanwhile, they're constantly dumping on the male gender, and the male characters we do get are either a desperate simp or a total idiot who is also a jerk and is constantly being body shamed. The self-defense stuff is also pretty ridiculous. They make it into some tournament to discover who's the least vulnerable, which is not what self-defense is about. King of the Hill also had a self-defense episode. It was pretty ridiculous, but it was also funny, and it's okay to exaggerate things for comedic effect, but as long as it's actually funny.
That's my purse.
Don't be afraid to shout it. That's my purse! Try it again.
That's my purse! I don't know you!
I'm also not sure what this show is trying to say. They keep making all these blanketed statements about men, how they're violent and basically evil, white men in particular.
The school board is requiring that all girls attend a women's self-defense class to protect themselves from any future serial killers.
Why don't the boys have to take a Don't Murder Girls class?
Because I only have $50 in the budget to combat centuries of toxic masculinity.
But then they turn around and have the female characters be exceedingly violent, whether they're beating each other up, insulting and threatening each other, or in the tournament where Daphne literally stabs a girl. And like I said, the lead suspect right now is Velma's mom. So what exactly is the messaging here? Because it seems very confused. I'm also confused as to what we're supposed to take seriously and what we aren't. Like, they often make fun of things like mental health or therapy, but then there's a scene where Velma tries to humiliate Daphne in front of the school by reading her diary and exposing the fact that she often gets therapy, but the school turns against Velma, saying that mental health is no joke, which is pretty cool because what Velma did was really gross. But also, they've been making fun of mental health this entire time. So are we supposed to take mental health seriously in this show or not? And then there's the violence. The murders are supposed to be taken seriously, but then Fred accidentally cut that kid's foot off, which was not supposed to be taken seriously, and they keep referencing it as a joke. It makes for an inconsistent tone, and it's not doing the show any favors in my opinion. Anyway, the self-defense didn't work out and the third victim was discovered. They probably should have actually taught the girls self-defense instead of making them all fight each other for no reason, so they have to rely on the police detail. Velma goes to Fred to make the list for her, because it represents everything she hates about the patriarchy. She comments that he looks good for someone who just got out of prison, ignoring the fact that she's the one who put him in prison to begin with. Anyway, he uses some kind of perverted math to make the list, and then asks what else he can do for her, which is surprising given everything that's happened up to this point. Plus, he's supposed to be a total jerk, but she wants him to read a book about feminism, which he mistakes as an X-Men book because it's called The Feminine Mystique, so he thinks they're talking about the X-Men character. I'm surprised he would know X-Men, but he reads the book from cover to cover, and is mad afterwards because he finally realized that it's not about X-Men. I'm surprised he didn't figure that out sooner. The book was 400 pages, but he somehow had the patience to sit through all of it. But he becomes influenced by the book. His personality doesn't get any better, he's still a jerk, it's just now he's looking at basically every woman instead of just hot women. Like this elderly woman who is painting in the park. He's into that now, even though she's probably old enough to be his mom, if not his grandmother. But I still don't know what they're trying to say here. He claims that he appreciates inner beauty now, but he's still going to hit on women and be inappropriate. Like, he sees Velma beating up people in front of the school. I'll come back to that point. But now he's into her and he sends her a nude pic of himself, only the top half though because of the whole late bloomer thing. And then tries to ask her out, but he's still being rude about it. And then she rejects him, claiming that she prefers inner beauty, which is not true at all. She openly admits to the fact that she only liked Fred because of his looks, and that she's a pervert.
I mean, sure, if someone was like, want to see a naked picture of Fred? I'd be like, hubba hubba. But I'd say that about anyone. LeBron, Helen Mirren, a mummy.
Plus, she's kind of a terrible person in general. So was any of this actual character development for either of them? Because this feels like it's going nowhere. So Velma brings the list to the cops, but they say that instead of wasting money trying to protect these girls, they're going to have Velma teach them how to be ugly. They're really going out of their way to not actually track down this killer, huh? So all the girls go to Velma's house, with the exception of Daphne, because her parents have her under house arrest, to try to protect her from the murderer. In retrospect, I'm not sure why Daphne was even on that list. She already has police parents, so they'll probably protect her for free. So she lectures the girls about internalized misogyny, and basically tells them not to practice personal hygiene or self-care. She doesn't let them use a hairdryer because apparently hairdryers are tools of the patriarchy. And I mean, towel drying or air drying is fine, but what's wrong with using a hairdryer? One of the girls ends up having twigs and a bird in her hair. Also, I guess they don't brush their teeth? It's bad enough that she's insisting the only reason why women wear nice clothes clothes or wear makeup is because men demand it, but basically saying that self-care in general is patriarchal is just weird. And they're all wearing glasses. I'm guessing some of those are non-prescription, but that implies that glasses are ugly, which is an ugly stereotype. Also, if they wanted the girls to appear unfashionable, they probably shouldn't have put a bucket hat. Bucket hats are currently in trend, so why would they use a bucket hat for an ugly makeover? The whole point of this was to be not fashionable and not fit in, only for them to inadvertently follow trends. So the girls try to be ugly for a while, but then they decide they don't like it and go back to their original looks. They then confront Velma, saying that her view of womanhood is even more restrictive than theirs is, and that she's shaming. And while I like them calling her out, I think the execution could have been handled a lot better. Like them saying a woman shouldn't have to change how she dresses to not be murdered is fine, but they were also acting like personal hygiene was patriarchal, which isn't exactly a personal choice, that's just stuff you should be doing anyway. So Velma starts to rethink her perspective, which makes it look like Velma's going to have character development, only for them to undo everything by the end of the scene. So she dresses in this outlandish outfit, claiming she wants to support all the ways women express themselves, even ones she thinks are stupid, only for her dad's pregnant girlfriend to go into labor, but they're stuck in front of the school and there's a big crowd so the ambulance can't get through. So she spots the hot girls and tells them to objectify themselves by dancing sexy, which would distract the crowd by moving them like 5 feet to the left, which is just another excuse to sexualize minors, especially since despite the fact the girls are dancing, Velma still beats everybody up and pushes them out of the way. This is also when Fred sees her beating people up and decides that she's worth pursuing. So in the end, Velma's still a self-absorbed jerk. One of the girls, Gigi, does decide to change up her look, which is fine, but I'm disappointed that she was inspired by Velma to do so. Nothing about Velma is inspiring. When she leaves the bathroom, Norville runs into her. He yells at her for getting in his way, except it was his fault. He was looking at his phone while she just came out of the bathroom. But despite this, they end up having a connection, which kinda comes out of nowhere. On the one hand, I'm glad he's moving past Velma, but on the other hand, I feel like Gigi can do better. Norville spent this entire episode following Daphne around just so he can figure out why Velma likes her instead of him, and he literally tried to bribe and guilt Velma into dating him. I feel bad for him, but he's still pathetic, and the only reason he gave up on Velma is because he realized he can't emulate Daphne. In this version, they made the danger-prone Daphne aspect of her character to be that she loves danger and will go out of her way to basically do stupid things, which Norville is not willing to do, so he literally becomes attracted to the next girl who talks to him, even if she just said hi. After he yelled at her even though he's the one who bumped into her, what does she see in him? This is all just really sudden, much like everything else in this show. They never have any setup for anything, and they don't flesh anything out, whether it's characters or plot. This show didn't have to be this bad, but we're halfway through season 1 and nothing of value has happened. Just 3 murder victims and a bunch of unlikable characters. But that's my opinion. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. I want to give a shout out to our channel's members: Stutania, Tyrant Carnivore, Adam K, Shiny Orc Boy, The Rabbit Mancer, General Bolivar, Depth Charge Media, Samaru163, Gabby Hime, Sandy Martin, Verdant Range, JVR, HussyMan42, Nixel, Eric Griffin, Bill C, Taylor Ramirez, Caleb Nelson, Bandito Bane, Dakari the Professor, Equestron, Owen Wildish, Norman Sweetcream, Way Beyond Coincidence, Garcia, XV Legend, Hunter Rose, Dashhound, 80s Nostalgia Guy, and Lil. Thank you all so much for your support, and if you'd like to support the channel as a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this content, you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, and that part's free. We also have Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.